What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Sheehan Show here on Sherdog.com. My name is Sean Sheehan, and today I am looking ahead to Bellator. 2 cards next weekend coming up. Bellator 294 and Bellator 295. I'm going to look at some of the best fights on both of these cards. The fights, I suppose, with the title implications, with the jeopardy, and some of the best up-and-comers and newcomers as well in Bellator. These cards are emanating from Honolulu, Hawaii, in the United States. And you're probably thinking, Sean, what are you talking about? Hawaii? MMA can't happen in Hawaii. Dana White just said it. But no, Bellator doing 2 cards in the space of a weekend in Hawaii. So MMA is possible in Hawaii. It's not banned, you know. it's allowed, and we will see it here. And you know what? I speak a lot on these preview podcasts I do for One Championship, for PFL, for Bellator and others, and especially those other 2 I mentioned aside from Bellator, about being a little bit different. Obviously, One Championship have their, no rounds in terms of the scoring. They have, the different rule set in terms of shots you control and all of that, and the weight cutting as well and all of that. Plus, PFL have the season and the smart cage and all of this stuff. Bellator as well, they're not as different as, say, the UFC or the homogenized MMA product we're used to, but the fact that they can go to Hawaii, the fact they make a big deal of it, and when they come here to Ireland as well and make a big deal of it and come put on locals and the crowds go wild for it, it is really something that sets Bellator apart from the UFC and from others as well. And to have that thing that they have, like PFL have with their seasons, and like the One Championship have with all of their stuff, it's good, and I really like that, and I think it's a good thing. Plus, they have their own tournament as well, which we will be talking about here in a second as well. So let's get into some of the fights, and let's talk about them. I'm going to go back and forth here. I want to talk about the 2 main events first of all, and as I said, I'll go back and forth between these fights and try to keep it in line in terms of telling you which one is on which night. So the first fight I'm going to talk about is this Carmouche versus Deanna Bennett. That is the main event of Bellator 294 on Friday night, the 21st. And obviously it's a rematch of a fight they had a couple of years ago. That fight took place back in 2020 in September, and Carmouche won that. She ended up getting the rear naked choke coming back. And I watched that fight yesterday, so we'll talk about that in a second. But since then, I suppose, just to quickly look, Carmouche and Bennett have both been active enough and both done exceptionally well. Vanessa Porto, Kenna Wanatabe, and 2 Juliana Velasquez fights for Carmouche since then, obviously winning all of them. And for Deanna Bennett, similarly, she has had her fights against Justine Kish twice and against Alandra Lara as well, which was supposed to happen, was cancelled and happened again. So they've both been undefeated since then. A lot of unanimous decisions for Deanna Bennett in there, or Deanna Bennett even. I could call her Diana for some reason, but I think they both enter this fight probably, even though Bennett is 38, I believe, and Carmouche is 39, they still enter the fight, I think, improved from the last time they met, 3 years ago. I think, look, Liz Carmouche is, maybe people disagree with this, but I think she's fighting the best she's ever fought in her career, coming to Bellator, having the opportunity to fight for a title, like she had in the UFC, but to win the title and to go on and defend it the way she did, make it. And we all had, I suppose, doubts after the first one with the stoppage the way it was and all, but to win it spectacularly the next way, it's been great. And then Bennett as well. A lot of people, when they're 36 years of age, or they lose a title fight, or they lose a big fight even, not a title fight at the time, against Carmouche the way they did, maybe it's a case of you're not getting back to that level again, but she absolutely has, and she deserves to be back there as well in this 125-pound division. Now, that first fight, it was obviously Carmouche in the end showed her ability on the ground, and do you know what? I think Carmouche's jiu-jitsu and that ability on the ground, whether it's wrestling, jiu-jitsu, transitions and all, is probably underrated. It's definitely the most underrated part of her game, but one of the most underrated parts of anyone's game, especially in the women's divisions, I think, in Bellator, or in even the wider MMA landscape. She's very good on the ground. She gets... Even if she isn't getting you in a submission, or even if she isn't getting lots of submissions in her career, I think she has 4 submissions in her career, so not loads or anything like that. But I think she's very good at, like look at the Ronda Rousey fight. She's very good at surviving in those positions. She's very good at maybe gaining an advantage when there is that transition on the ground. And against people who are maybe stronger or better athletes, say like a Juliana Velasquez, she can get at her with an armbar. She can get her in a position that she doesn't want to be, even if she's losing the fight as well. So she obviously submitted Deanna Bennett with a rear naked choke. She submitted Juliana Velasquez with an armbar as well. So I say about her having 4 submissions, 2 of them in her last 4 fights. So that, I suppose, says a lot as well. And maybe that's the changing part for her game. We talked about Kat Zingano a few weeks ago as well. And it was a similar thing. I think she, has changed up her game a lot, where she is wrestling a lot more than previously. Like, she was always a good grappler and always had good jiu-jitsu. But the fact that she is wrestling more has kind of changed her game around a little bit. And I think for Carmouche, it's not the same in terms of her wrestling a little bit more, but I think she uses her jiu-jitsu as more of a weapon now than she's ever done before. And I think that's an interesting part of this game as well. And this fight as well, sorry. And I wonder if it will play a bigger part maybe than it did in the first fight, until obviously the very end. So the first fight, it was a very even fight. Look, it was very even. I think the problem when you look at a fight like that, right, and you look at a matchup between Carmouche and someone like Bennett, or even someone like Velasquez as well, like Carmouche is always a little bit smaller. She always kind of looks maybe not as fast, but not too much slower, but always looks like less physically imposing, I suppose, in terms of height and in terms of maybe athleticism. Now, Liz is actually a very good athlete in terms of maybe a strength athlete and her ability to like push forward, and she has a good body type for MMA, in terms of strong, good cardio, well able to take the weight in terms of getting down to the cut and able to push that for 5 rounds, to keep the pace, keep the strength. And she has obviously improved her ability, a lot over the years. But having said that, someone like Bennett, if she can get a jab going, if she can keep her on the end of that jab, but also kind of land a couple of combinations behind it, she could have the better of it, right? But I think it's very interesting. We've seen a lot of fights lately. Like, there's a tendency in MMA, right? And I could spend an hour talking about this fight, maybe in fights like it, but there's a tendency in MMA these days to kind of, and I do it myself, so I'm not giving out to anyone here or anything, but to always favour maybe the more technical fighter, if you want to put it that way. And that's not always right. The technical fighter doesn't always win. Sometimes it's the one that the more bullish, pig-headed, go forward, put you against the fence, blood and guts type of fighter that will win fights. Sometimes it is that, right? And it'd be a disservice to Liz Carmouche now to say she's only that, because she absolutely isn't. But does she have more of that than Bennett? I think she probably does. So I feel like we're going to see a similar fight to what we saw the last time. I think it's going to be even on the feet. And you know what? I don't know if Carmouche is going to get the finish this time. So I think it could be even for a whole 5 rounds. I think it could be a very close fight. But let me add that proviso, which I added kind of at the start of this, that like Carmouche, I think, will be trying to use her jiu-jitsu as a weapon. She will be trying to look for a finish if the fight hits the ground, but also to take it to the ground herself. And will she be successful? Like, will be Bennett? Like, if I can see that, right, Bennett can see it, and our team can see it, and they'll be more well prepared for it. And I think we'll probably make it maybe a slower fight on the feet, in terms of she won't give as much so that Carmouche can get the fight to that area, if you get me. So all in all, I think it's, as I said, I predict 5 rounds here. If I'm giving you my prediction, do you know what? I don't know. I think I'm going to go Bennett, right? I think I'm going to go Bennett in this one. We'll have the betting show later on the week. We'll see when the prices, I don't believe the prices are out yet, because I think it'll be interesting this. But as I always say, maybe my normal pick is different from the betting pick. So we will see when that happens. But I don't actually, hold on, the betting odds are out. Let me see. No, the betting odds for Bellator 285 are out, but not the betting odds for 295, but not the betting odds for 294 out. So that's a bit weird. Oh, hold on. Maybe there are. No, there's some for 294 out. Let me just look here. I'm half like, oh yeah, here it is. So Bennett is plus 285, minus 350 for Carmouche. I think that's a great price. I think that's a great price. I think this is a 50-50 fight. You know, I lean Bennett. I'm going to lean Bennett at plus 285. Spoiler alert, that's probably going to be one of my bets of the week. Maybe even if I can get her to by decision. When the more of the odds come out, it might even be a flyer. But yeah, that is an interesting fight, and I'm looking forward to seeing it. Let's talk about the other main event on the weekend, Bellator 295, Raufeon Stots versus Patchy Mix. About as high level can be. I was talking to my co-host over in the Severe Med podcast, Graham, about this fight as well. And I picked Stots, and there's my official pick, Stots in this, and he picked Mix, and I think we both kind of said, well, do you know what, maybe you're right. You know, we were both kind of saying it, because this is one you just don't know, really, do you? You've, 17-1 against 19-1. You know, the level of guys they've fought in the last while has just been superb. Like, you look at Stots' record over the last couple of years. Being Danny Sabatello, who, you know, we all know how good of a wrestler he is, you know, made tough work of it. To be fair, it was a split decision, close fight. Although that was the bit of the weird split decision. He did win that fight, but it was a tough fight. Beat Juan Archuleta, beat Magomedov. I think very few people actually favoured him for that one. He beat Josh Hill, beat Keith Lee, who's like one of the biggest TikTokers in the world right now, so fair play to him on that. But even back, you know, further, the only one who has ever lost that is Merab Jashvili, but like, he's been fighting since 2015. He's fought, you know, the likes of Jeff Kern and Rob Emerson, but before he came to Bellator. So he's always kind of taken on tough guys and been very successful fighting against them. And you look at Mix, and do you know what? I don't know with Mix, right? Because I always thought Mix was a good fighter, but I never thought like he would actually get to this level, right? I didn't think he would be a fighter who I would be looking at and seeing 17-1 Patchy Mix. That was, I always respected him, but the level that he has gotten to, in my opinion, in the last 3 fights is way over and above the level I thought I expected him. And now that's not on Patchy Mix, that's on me, you know? But like, as I said as well, you look at before they get to the UFC, and how important is that as well? You know, we talked there a couple of weeks ago about the young 18-year-old Rosas Jr. in the UFC, and about, you know, getting to the UFC and having your fights outside of the UFC or outside of Bellator to prepare you to get there. Patchy Mix beat Tony Gravely, beat Andre Ewell outside of the UFC. You know, Tony Gravely, 16 fights deep at that time. Andre Ewell, 12 fights deep at the time in King of the Cage. A place that, you know, has produced a lot of good fighters. He beat a guy who was 18-10 in a fight then after that, before getting to Bellator and fighting Ricky Bandejas as a, 10-0, 9-0 fighter. That's the type of betting you need in your career to get to Bellator, and then have the record he has there. Has just looked absolutely phenomenal. Won 7 of 8 fights, or 8 of 9 fights, something like that, since he got to Bellator, beating the likes of Ricky Bandejas on the way. Okay, he gave up a fight to Juan Archuleta back in 2020. That was 3 years ago. But 4-0 since that. Beat James Gallagher. You know, a lot of people give out about James and have no respect for James, but that was a relatively close fight until the third round, and James performed well in there. And, you know, if he can come back and fight like that again, James Gallagher could beat guys in that division, because look what Patchy Mix has done since. So bit of respect, look, a bit of Irish bias here, but a respect for James Gallagher as well. But great win there, great win against Haraguchi. I don't think anyone expected that. And then Magomedov to destroy him the way he did and finish him with a guillotine in the second. Just phenomenal. Now, let's talk about them individually in terms of their games. Stots, look, he reminds me of your old school, I suppose, Rufus Sports fighter, in terms of he's good in all areas. Now, I think the difference between him and maybe Pettis and some of the other ones, he has kind of taken up modern MMA more than them, maybe. And we saw Sergey. I mean, I know I interviewed Sergey a few years ago, and I said, what does it feel like to be a better fighter than your brother ever was? Which he didn't. He kind of laughed at. He didn't take too kindly, but I truly believe that. And some people might say, what are you talking about? But in terms of quality of fighter, I think he is. And in terms of quality of fighter, I think Stots is a high quality fighter. Obviously, his wrestling is fantastic. The way he fought against Magomedov, who is a fantastic wrestler, and he beat him in a wrestling match, was brilliant. But he can hit hard, he can do it all around. He really can do it all around. Whereas Mix is a guy, I think, who's maybe put it together in the last few fights. As I said, like, Mix was a guy who I looked at and said, he's good jiu-jitsu, but is that striking going to be good enough? Is the wrestling going to be good enough? But now he's wrestling guys all over the place. Anti-wrestling is very good. His striking has improved no end, and his jiu-jitsu now is more of a weapon than it ever was because he has the other parts with it. You know, we often talk about jiu-jitsu and say it doesn't work in modern MMA because you need so many other things to make it actually, you know, be useful, if we put it that way. But when you have all of that, as I said with Carmouche, you can use it as a weapon. You know, you're well-rounded everywhere. Use this one thing as a weapon. And I feel like that's what Patchy Mix kind of is doing a little bit. But that's to say, like, maybe it seemed like, oh, he's just well-rounded and he has this one good thing. I actually don't believe that anymore. You know, I think his striking is really good now. He can hit hard, you know, switching stances, but, you know, hitting with his left hand is lovely, and he always lands it well. I just think both of these guys have gone to a different level in the last couple of years, and I think it's a phenomenal fight. Look, the only drawback I have it with is it's the end of the tournament, it's for the title, and the champion's off fighting someone else. You know, how is that fair? How is that fair? Now, I love the Pettis versus Patricio fight, and, you know, they're having fun, and I respect Bellator for doing it, and I understand why they did it. But also, like, if you're mixing your Stots, you're left twiddling your thumbs here after winning this tournament for the next year, maybe, at a minimum 8-9 months, waiting for someone else who holds the belt to defend it. And then, like, what if Patricio decides to go back up and fight there? Let's say if he wins. I don't think that's very fair. I don't like it. I do not like it. I have a lot of respect for Mix, and I have a lot of respect for Stots, and I think they deserve better, to be honest. Now, when Patricio and Pettis comes on, I'll absolutely love that. So you can't please me. You literally can't please me. But no, it's a great fight on Saturday night. And I'm looking forward to seeing it. I'm going for Stots as well in that fight, just in case I know people give out to me. We call this a prediction show, and I don't give my predictions. It's more of a preview than the predictions. I don't know who am I picking. Who cares? Who cares who I'm picking? But yeah, I'm gonna go with Stots. Even though, like, I pretty nearly pick against Mix, but I am going for Stots. Aaron Pico has a new opponent. He's fighting James Gonzalez here. He's supposed to fight Otto Rodriguez, and this is a big fight for Aaron Pico. His opponent, you know, obviously coming in short notice, but he has 10 days now from when this turnaround he's fought in Bellator before against Cody Law and beat him. He won in the PFL Challenger Series only a month ago or so, and, you know, he's fought on that Ring of Combat scene we talked about earlier. He's fought in CFFC. You know, he's a win over Pat Sabatini, who's very good. He lost the decision to Bill Aljo, who we saw in the UFC over the weekend. So he's fought some good guys, and I'm sure he'll come in here, you know, and give a good account of himself. Lots of his fights going to a decision, so he's not a guy who goes in there and loses all that very much in bad fashion. I think all of his losses, he's lost 5 times, all of them by decision. So interested to see how he looks. But for Pico, look, this fight is all about Pico. Let's be honest. He went out there in his last few fights and he's looked amazing. You know, absolutely fantastic, you know, since the Barracks fight, since the Corrales fight, beat Daniel Carey, Hatley, De Jesus, Aiden Lee, Justin Gonzalez, Adli Edwards, and then Jeremy Kinney the last. And look, Jeremy Kinney's a very good fighter, but there was also a shoulder injury. I think both of them would probably like to get that fight back again. You know, Jeremy Kinney had a great win since against Pedro Carvalho, but, like, I put up a thing the other day on Twitter and I said, who are the top 5 featherweights in the world outside of the UFC, right? And, you know, obviously we had AJ McKee thrown in there, even though he's up at 55 now, with Patricio, even though he's gone down, which is, funnily enough, Bellator's 2 best featherweights are a lightweight and a bantamweight. But anyway, we had Brendan Loughnane, we had Mavlid, we had Paul Hughes obviously thrown in there, and we had a good few more. And we did have a few Aaron Picos, but not a lot, right? Not a load of Aaron Picos. I wouldn't say like Aaron Pico was the first, second, or third name on the lists, you know? And that is a bit odd, right? Because Aaron Pico, on his day, is as good as anyone. Like, before the Jeremy Kennedy fight, we were thinking, right, if he wins that, him versus Patricio is going to be an absolute barn burner of a fight. It's going to be a great fight. And it just hasn't happened for Aaron Pico, unfortunately, yet. But it needs to, you know? This is the time now for Aaron Pico to go on this run. He's been on a run. Like, there's no doubt about it. He hasn't lost a fight since 2019 until the Jeremy Kennedy one. And it was a shoulder injury. Look, We all know what happened there. But there's only so much bad luck, only so many losses. Like, he looks so great. If I'm Aaron Pico here, I'm going in and I win this fight in the first round, and I'm saying, I want to be on that Ireland card. You know? I want to fight here in 4 months. Or that's even too far away. I want to fight in a month. So what's the next card? Next one up, lads. Come on. Jeremy Kennedy, you didn't take too much damage in that Carvalho fight. I'm fighting you next. Rematch needs to happen. Here we go. Call out Pedro Carvalho. You know, for the double card. Say, Kennedy, I want you next in 2 months' time. And Pedro Carvalho, I want you in Dublin after that. That's all he needs. Win the 2 of them fights and then next year in a title fight. You know, that's what Aaron Pico needs. And look, there could be a vacant title here, or there could be an interim title or something. You never know. At 145 pounds with Patricio gone down. So I think this is the time for Pico. It really is the time for Pico. He you know, we all know what happened at the start of his career. Obviously, the Zach Freeman fight was too quick, and in the Corrales and Borax fights were definitely too quick. But they rolled him back. He got his few wins. He's 26 years of age now. It's time for Aaron Pico to hit his peak. No pun intended. And do you know what? I really hope he does. I hope people don't think this is me being negative or anything. I actually think the world of Aaron Pico. I think he's really, really good, really good. I think he's maybe the best featherweight in the world in weighting. He could really be. You know, okay, outside of the UFC, outside of Volkanovski and maybe Holloway, he very, very well could be. And I hope this is the first step to it. Let's look at 1 or 2 more fights from 194 on the Friday, because I want to concentrate on a couple of fights from 195 that I really like here in the last 10 minutes or so of the show. An interesting fight in the Bellator heavyweight division between Sowma and Tim Johnson. Look, the Bellator heavyweight division is very interesting because I think like a couple of guys have now stood up and I suppose put their names in the hat for being the next guy in the division. But there's a big opportunity. Look, obviously Linton Vassell, Daniel James won his fight a couple of weeks ago as well, putting his name up there. But for these two lads, Johnson ranked number 7, Sowma. Is Sowma ranked? He's unranked at the moment, I think, but he's always been ranked over the last while. You know, Gokim Sakaram is fighting against James in the next while as well. So, you know, you just never know in this division. So I think that could be a big fight if he wins it. And definitely a big fight is, I mentioned earlier, Sara McMann against Arlene Blencowe. Sara McMann wins that fight and she puts herself in the mix, right? You know, Blencowe has been obviously around for the last while. She has had her opportunities. She's had, you know, some very, very big fights over the last while. And, you know, ranked number 2 at the moment, Sara McMann comes in there and she beats her. You know, her, Kat Zingano and Sinead Kavanagh are definitely the people in the mix there. Then you have Liam McCord, who had a phenomenal performance against Zingano last time out. Sarah Collins beat Pam Sorensen last time out as well. She looks very, very good. I could see them matching her with Sinead Kavanagh maybe next, or sorry, with Liam McCord maybe next. But this is a big fight, you know, because let's say they do Zingano against Cyborg if Cyborg comes back, right? Then you're probably looking at Sinead Kavanagh, who's next in line, maybe against McMann as a number 1 contender fight in Dublin, possibly. Is Cyborg coming back? We just don't know. Like, if Cyborg's not coming back, I could see him doing McMann versus Zingano straight up for the title, and maybe the winner of that fights, you know, Sinead Kavanagh, who's definitely next in line now if Blencowe was to lose here, being ranked number 3 behind Blencowe and Zingano. So it's a massive fight for Sara McMann. She can put herself right in to the title contention here with a win, and I think that's probably the most meaningful fight outside of the main event in terms of the rankings on Friday night. Big fight as well for Danny Sabatello coming back here after the tournament. He's fighting Marcus Bruna. Win there, you know, I've seen him call out James Gallagher before. What about that fight? Is that a fight that could happen? I could see it happening. Kilis Mata is back here. Levan Chokheli, who is 11-2 and a very, very, very good fighter, had beat Roman Fernaldo last time out, who was undefeated coming into that after losing to Gayoti Yamauchi. So that's a big fight as well for the division. He's fighting Michael Lombardo, who, you know, came in there last time, beat Mark Liminger after losing to Kyle Crutchmere, knocked him out with a big left hook. You know, that's an interesting fight for that division too. So we'll see where that goes. We have another heavyweight fight. Tyrell Fortune was always thereabouts in the middle of that division against Sergey Bilostenniy. I think he's new to Bellator, if I'm not mistaken. He's 10-2 Now, yeah, he is new to Bellator. He's been around for a while. He's a win over someone like Mark Godbeer, who's a name. Made his debut all the way back in 2015. So interesting to see what he looks like here on this card, and could be another contender in the relatively light Bellator heavyweight division that, as I said, has produced a few contenders at the moment. But the Saturday night card, as I said, is very much more stacked, and do you know what? It's a really, really, really good card. On the undercard, Joanne and Bruna Ellen at 125 pounds. One of them could make a kind of a run forward. I fancy Joanna in that one, if I'm being honest. Another heavyweight fight is when Davion Franklin, who's looked good in sports. He's fighting Kasim Aras, coming out of Germany, 7-1. I think he's a good wrestler. So let's see on that one. Weber Almeida will be looking for a submission against Keoni Diggs, fighting in his home country as well. Do you know what? I think I might like Weber Almeida in that one, although you never know with him. The two fights in the middle of this card as well. Kamaka the third against Adli Edwards. That's a very good fight written all over. Now, Adli Edwards, as I said, a big opportunity against Pico last time out. Kamaka has been looking for that big opportunity. And I think if he wins this one, I think he will be pushed up a bit at 145, and I think he will end up getting an opportunity at some stage in that division. He's not ranked at the moment, but I think if he wins that, maybe he'll be touching on the rankings. He is a good fighter, and I think he deserves a matchup like this in his home country as well. Yancy Medeiros against Charlie Leary. Charlie Leary, a guy who I thought a while ago was going to find it tough, I suppose, in Bellator. And look, he beat Kiefer Crosby, though, a great win. He beat Chris Bungard, a great win. Now, he has lost to the likes of Davi Gallon and Sara back in his last couple of fights, but this is a big fight for him bouncing back here against Yancy Medeiros. I think Yancy was talking about retiring not too long ago, but he's got a second lease on life with Bellator. Won his last fight against Emmanuel Sanchez. Do you know what? I wasn't expecting that, to be honest. If he can reproduce that, I think he'll win this fight. If he can't, I think Charlie Leary is good enough to win it. I'd probably just go for Charlie Leary in that one, if I'm being honest, but tough, close fight. A big fight then at 145 pounds, Justin Gonzalez against Mads Burnell. Gonzalez 7, Burnell 6. Gonzalez is 14-1 in his career, and this is a massive fight for him. He beat, the aforementioned Kamaka. He's only lost his star in Pico, which I mentioned earlier as well. Had a win over Aaron Fisher the last time out, and it was beating the likes of Zach Zane, who has lots of experience. He beat him in the Contender Series, I believe. So 3-1 in Bellator right now. But sure, Mads Burnell is, on his day, one of the best fighters in the world. What a win, though, for Pedro Carvalho last time out against him, after Barrocks beat him in that number one contender bout, I suppose, for the 145-pound title. Before that, he was on some run as well. Prior to that was Burnell beating Emmanuel Sanchez, beating Saul Rogers, Steve Emble, D. Truman over in Cage Warriors, and many more as well. With Burnell, it's always, can you stay away from the ground? Can you stay away from that jiu-jitsu game? Especially if you're anyone, basically, I think that's the biggest thing here. And, for that division, it's absolutely huge, because we don't know what's happening at 145 pounds. Patricio is there. Adam Barrocks just had his chance. Jeremy Kindy's waiting on one. Aaron Pico is fighting this weekend. AJ McKee's gone up. Pedro Carvalho just lost. Mads Burnell, as I said, and Justin Gonzalez are fighting here. Timur Kiriev is fighting against Richie Smullen coming up pretty soon as well. And Lucas Brennan just had to break it into that division at 8-0. It's anyone's game there, really. So that's a massive fight in that division. I mentioned Aaron Pico already, and I mentioned obviously the main event. The two other fights I just wanted to, the two other fights I'll just barely touch on. Elimele McFarlane and Keoni Tab. Like, Elimele is a very interesting one as well, because she was talking about retiring not too long ago. She came back with that win against Bruna Ellen in a close fight, and she's coming in here against Keoni Tab, who is a very well-rounded fighter and a very, very good fighter. Her only loss is to Liz Carmouche. She had a brilliant win over Denise Keelholz last time out, who was in one of the fights of the year just prior to that. She's beaten Alexandra Ilara, she's beaten Ilara Joanne, and many more as well on her way to Bellator. Again, fought 5-1, 4-1 in Bellator. And this is a big fight for Elimele. We see a lot of wins by submission, a lot of wins by ground and pound for Wanatabe. So I think Elimele, the crowd behind her and all, I think she is going to need to raise the level. I would fancy Wanatabe. My pick is definitely Wanatabe for this fight, but Elimele is going to need to rise the levels here in front of the home crowd. Can she do it? I suppose we will see. So the last fight I want to touch on is maybe my favourite fight of the weekend, and that's Ray Borg against Kyoji Horiguchi. everyone knows me that I love 125 pound fight. Now, 125 pounds, I'm not sure why they're not doing this at 135 pounds. And like, hopefully they are, and hopefully the wherever I'm looking here on the Bellator website is wrong. But I look, Ray Borg, we all think of Ray Borg as like, he's had a very iffy career with injuries and all of that, and he has, right? But since the middle of 2021, he's gone 3-0, beat Jesse Arnett, beat Cody Gibson, and beat Ricky Banderas, which is a great win around this time last year. But again, it's been a year. Signing with Bellator, that was a big thing for him, and he's getting a big opportunity here against Kyoji Horiguchi, who, you know, himself hasn't been on the best run, I suppose, over the last couple of years, but he has won his last two now. He won in that Bellator versus Risen card at the end of the year. He won a Risen fight before that as well, after losing to Mix, and that obviously knockout of the year against Sergio Pettis before the two fights against Kaya Sakura, the one win and one loss back in 2019 and /2020. You should look, I would think that Horiguchi is just a better, well-rounded fighter and should win this. But Borg, he's good athlete, he's strong, you know, he can hit hard, he's good submissions, and I wouldn't rule him out. I think this is going to be really fun, but I do think Horiguchi will win, and probably will win pretty convincingly in this one, so I'm definitely picking him there. So I'll run you through some of my picks there as well, because I know people do get kind of mad. A couple of picks from the first night. I'm going to go with Bennett. I'll go with Saeed Sowma as well to beat Tim Johnson. I'm going with Sara McMann to win in that fight. I would pick as well Levan Chokheli to win his fight against Michael Lombardo on the first night. And on the second night, I'm going for Stots there. Definitely going for Wanatabe. I'll pick Pico to beat Gonzalez. I'll pick Horiguchi to win that fight. I'm going, do you know what? I said it earlier, I'm going for Charlie Leary. I'll go for Mads Burnell. Do you know what as well? I think Kai Kamaka will probably be the underdog in that fight. Let me just see if I can see if he is the underdog. I would presume he is, but you know what? I'm gonna go for him anyway. He is minus 195, so not a massive underdog, but I'm gonna go for Kai Kamaka in that one as well. So yeah, those are my best picks, I suppose, from the two nights. I will have the betting show this week with even more picks, so tune in for that as well. All right, everyone, I will leave it there. Please click the subscribe button if you aren't already on YouTube. If you're just listening to this, go over to YouTube. Subscribe to the Sherdog YouTube page, because there's loads of great stuff. UFC content, Bellator content, One Championship content, PFL content. All the content is out there. So stay with us here and we won't show you wrong. My name is Sean Sheehan for Sherdog.com. I'll see you all next time.